This is Fox 59 Nightcast.
Dead men tell no tales unless they're serial killer Larry Eyler. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Donaldson.
And I'm Caroline Thaw. Nightcast learns an intense effort is underway to bring Larry Eyler's alleged accomplice to justice. In tonight's exclusive top story, Nightcast Adam Shapiro reports police want to reopen some of the Eyler murder cases based on the killer's deathbed confessions.
Before serial killer Larry Eyler died 3 weeks ago, he gave his attorney, Kathleen Zellner, detailed confessions in 21 brutal murders.
And in telling me about the crimes, to give me a full description of them, he ended up having to tell me about the accomplice involvement.
Zellner turned that information over to police in Chicago, Newton County, Indiana, and Kankakee, Illinois, which is where the new investigation begins. 19-year-old Stephen Crockett was Eyler's first victim. Illinois State's Attorney Clark Erickson believes Eyler had an accomplice in that murder.
What Kathleen Zellner gave us was something that we didn't have before. And so I really can't comment beyond that except to say that we want to investigate it thoroughly.
Which takes the investigation to Chicago, where detectives want to reopen the case of Eyler's last victim, Danny Bridges. The pictures are just too gruesome to show you. Bridges was cut into 8 pieces. Zellner says new forensic tests on evidence gathered almost 10 years ago from that killing and the one in Kankakee could lead police to Eyler's accomplice.
There are people out there who know who you are, know what you've done, and I think that you will be caught.
This is the apartment building where Danny Bridges was killed. The apartment building where Larry Eyler used to live. Police recently returned to this building looking for new leads, evidence they can use against Eyler's alleged accomplice. Of course, Eyler said he had an accomplice in another one of his murders. He says that man was Dr. Robert Little, an Indiana State University professor. The same man, according to Eyler, who helped pay for the apartment here in Chicago. Little was found not guilty during his trial in 1991 for the murder of Stephen Agan. Today, Little still teaches at ISU.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is that the police in Chicago may reopen the investigation into the Danny Bridges murder. How do you feel about that?
I have no comment on anything.
No comment whatsoever? Do you think it's a good idea to reopen that investigation?
I have no comment.
Neither Zellner nor police will publicly name Eyler's alleged accomplice. But this man will.
I just feel that there's more people in danger, and if it doesn't stop, there's going to be more people dead.
His name is Dejan Carley, and he's already testified in court that Eyler's alleged accomplice confessed to killing Danny Bridges. He'll share that story with you tomorrow night. Adam Shapiro, Fox 59 Nightcast.
Police plan to re-interview witnesses from the original Eyler murder investigations. This will bring them to Indianapolis to talk with one of their key witnesses who lives here.
You're watching WXIN, Indianapolis. This is Fox 59 Nightcast.
Serial killer Larry Eyler is dead, but police say his alleged accomplice is alive, and the hunt is on to catch him. Good evening, everyone. I'm Deborah Zoller.
And I'm Adam Shapiro. Bob and Caroline are off tonight. Before Larry Eyler died earlier this month, he confessed to 21 brutal crimes and named his accomplice. Police won't release the suspect's name. But in tonight's exclusive top story, one man who claims he was attacked by Eyler's alleged accomplice already has.
He first introduced himself to me as Dr. Bob.
Dejan Carley says he first met Dr. Robert Little in the mid-1970s. He would be reacquainted with Little many years later as a friend of serial killer Larry Eyler.
And then when I met him through Larry Eyler in 1983, that's when I met him as Dave Little.
Eyler and Little lived together here at Little's Terre Haute townhouse. But Eyler moved to this Chicago apartment building in the early 1980s. Little helped him pay the rent. It's the same apartment where Danny Bridges was brutally butchered and carved into 8 pieces. Carley testified in 1992 before the Illinois State Supreme Court that Dr. Little confessed to the crime.
He just told me that he was the one that killed him, and that if I told anyone about the night that he and Larry were in the bar, that he could place me at the scene, and that nobody would believe me, that I would be in the same position that Larry was in.
Dejan Carle used to be a bartender who worked at a gay nightclub here in Chicago. It's now a yogurt store and a mailbox, etc. Carle says the night Danny Bridges was killed, Larry Eyler and Dr. Robert Little came into the bar for a drink. Carle was acquainted with both men. Police say that Little told them he left Chicago around 10 o'clock that night to return to Indiana. But Carle tells a much different story.
Larry left between 11 and 11:30 that night.
And he stayed how late?
He stayed until about 12:30.
Little, who teaches at Indiana State University, denies any involvement in the Bridges killing.
Did you kill Danny Bridges?
No, I've never killed anybody.
Carle also testified that Little attacked and stabbed him repeatedly here at the Surf Hotel a few months after Bridges was killed, warning him to keep his mouth shut. Carle, who says he was terrified, never filed a police report. But his statement is part of the new evidence police in Indiana and Illinois are reviewing to see if Larry Eyler had an accomplice.
Have the authorities in Chicago been in touch with you? Okay. Any idea why anybody would want to look at you as a possible connection to these murders or that investigation?
I don't believe anyone would.
Zahn and Voiles are Dr. Little's attorneys, and they declined an interview. But Dejan Carle is talking, and police are listening. Investigators are asking people with information about the Eyler killings to call them at area code 815-937-2930.
Yet another mystery.
A murder 10 years ago will land a Terre Haute professor in court. Nightcast broke the story last night that a civil suit is being filed against Indiana State University professor Robert Little. Nightcast Adam Shapiro joins us now live from the newsroom. Adam, why exactly a civil suit and not a criminal suit, criminal charges?
Well, Caroline, Chicago police never charged Professor Robert Little with any crime after Danny Bridges was killed. Serial killer Larry Eyler, a friend of Little's, was convicted for that murder. But Bridges' family thinks Dr. Little committed the crime. They're not waiting for police to do anything. They're taking Little to court.
The police in Chicago may reopen the investigation into the Danny Bridges murder.
Professor Robert Little says he didn't do it.
Did you kill Danny Bridges?
No, I've never killed anybody.
But the family of murder victim Danny Bridges doesn't believe Little. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit against him. It says Little intentionally stabbed and caused the death of Daniel Bridges. Little wasn't home today, and he canceled his classes at Indiana State University. People who know him are rallying to his defense.
Anybody can bring a lawsuit to anybody. I think they're just pushing it, just trying to push it.
But this isn't just anybody. It's attorney Kathleen Zellner, the woman who represented serial killer Larry Eyler, the man originally convicted of killing Bridges. Eyler was also a close friend of Professor Little's, and Zellner says she'll introduce new evidence that implicates Little.
I'm going to bring in forensic experts, and we're going to analyze the case in a way that's never been done before.
The night that he attacked me, I saw a totally different person.
The case relies on the testimony of Dejan Carle, who claims Little confessed to the murder and also attacked him.
It's that person that I see in that nightmare. And in the nightmare I see him, and it's like I still feel the stabbing. I can feel it.
Now, this isn't the first time that Dr. Little has been tied to a Larry Eyler killing. In 1991, he was charged and tried for the murder of Stephen Agin. He was found not guilty in that case.
Okay, we will keep up with this. Thank you, Adam. Professor Little's attorney declined to comment on the lawsuit. Making history isn't easy.
Tomorrow, that in the full weather segment in just a bit. Caroline, Bob?
Okay, Chris, we'll look forward to that.
A legal storm is brewing tonight for a man implicated as an accomplice to a serial killer.
Nightcast broke the story last month when police in Illinois and Indiana reopened some of the Larry Eyler murder cases. Nightcast Adam Shapiro joins us live now from the newsroom with the latest development. Adam, have criminal charges been filed in the case now?
No criminal charges, Bob, have been filed, but I am holding a civil lawsuit that is going to be filed tomorrow morning in Chicago against Indiana State University professor Robert Little. Now, in this lawsuit, his accusers accuse him of being the killer of one of Larry Eyler's victims.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is that the police in Chicago may reopen the investigation into the Danny Bridges murder. How do you feel about that?
I have no comment on anything.
No comment whatsoever?
Professor Robert Little was a close friend of serial killer Larry Eyler, and Little denies taking part in any of Eyler's 21 brutal murders. But last month, police reopened some of the Eyler murder investigations, including the case of Eyler's final victim, Chicago native Danny Bridges.
Did you kill Danny Bridges?
No, I've never killed anybody.
Police have filed no new charges, but Bridges' family is. Tomorrow, their attorney will file this wrongful death lawsuit against Professor Little. The suit claims the defendant, Little, wrongfully and without legal justification or excuse, intentionally stabbed and caused the death of Daniel Bridges. Their case relies on the testimony of this man.
He referred to him as the kid that Larry was arrested for just recently.
Dejan Carle testified before the Illinois State Supreme Court that Little confessed to the Bridges murder.
He just told me that he was the one that killed him.
Now, there's a bizarre twist in all of this. The attorney representing Danny Bridges' family is the same attorney who represented Larry Eyler's death row appeals. Bob?
Now, wait a minute, Adam. Isn't that a conflict of interest? It sure sounds like one.
It does sound like one, but Larry Eyler died, and before he died, he confessed to all of these killings and gave great detail to that attorney. The question, I guess, tonight is, what is in those confessions that she's given to the police, but that she hasn't made public?
All right, Adam, thank you for that report. Nightcast will continue to follow the case and bring you updates. Caroline?
The fate of an Indianapolis attorney lies with the jury.
Or her killer.
Sometimes murder investigations last for years. It's been 10 years since police closed the case on serial killer Larry Eyler.
Today, 1 decade later, the officers who originally tracked Eyler meet in Indianapolis to re-examine the case. In tonight's exclusive coverage, police say this time they're hunting Eyler's accomplice. It's the first time in 10 years members of the Eyler Murder Task Force have gathered to review the evidence.
That's got the photographs, the albums of some of the crime scenes.
Yeah, the victims.
The task force always believed Eyler had an accomplice, but it was disbanded after Eyler was arrested in 1984.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the biggest mistakes that was made during that period of time. We still had a lot of dead bodies out there.
And a lot of unsolved murders until Eyler confessed before his death that he did have an accomplice.
There were living people that were named by Larry Eyler who allegedly know of some of the accomplices' involvement.
That prompted investigators in Kankakee, Illinois and Newton County, Indiana to reopen their Eyler murder cases and come to Indianapolis.
Part of the being here today is to see if we can pool information and towards this alleged accomplice and possibly get some prosecution.
It could take weeks, it could take months. Police say they are closer than ever before to catching Larry Eyler's accomplice, and they say they will do whatever it takes to bring him to justice.
Eyler had a lot of friends, and he ran with a bunch of them, and we found that out through informants. And you don't run with somebody that kills people unless you're being involved in it.
Yesterday, the family of one of Eyler's victims filed a lawsuit against Eyler's friend, Robert Little. They say Little killed Danny Bridges. Little says it's not true.
I think it's obvious that Mr. Little probably does know more than what he's willing to tell people.
I have never killed anybody.
No criminal charges have been filed against Little, and the task force won't name their suspects. But
I think that they'll come up with more arrests that were accomplished or doing the same things that Larry Eyler was.
Professor Little has not returned our phone calls.
Not all our young people are victims of crime.